We're interviewing the amazing Alli Schaper here, who we're talking about psychedelic geniuses. She's my biggest mentor in inspo, and if it wasn't for her, I would not be here. So super excited about this, and I would love for you, Alli, to introduce yourself, share all the things you are in, which is kind of hard to do.
My world revolves around mushrooms. So the main project business that I work with is called SuperMush, which you know very well because you've worked with us for many years now at this point. But it's a fully legal functional mushroom superfood company, and we make gummies. That's the main core product of the business. But it's this really beautiful, fun, colorful, community-led brand that's focused on how can we share the magic of mushrooms with the world. So that's SuperMush. And then I'm very active in the psychedelic space, hence why I'm at the conference right now. And that comes to life in the form of a podcast called Into the Multiverse, which is SuperMush's media arm. And then I do a lot of thought leader events in psychedelics as well. And then co-founded a nonprofit, which you are very involved with, and basically run now at this point, called Microdosing Collective, that's focused on the legalization of microdosing.
Love that. Amazing. You are everything, everywhere, all at once, Alli, always. But I'd love to know thinking about this place. There's a lot of people here who want to get into the industry. They're very excited about psychedelics. It's a growing industry. It's going to reach into $28 billion by 2027. What's your biggest advice to somebody here who wants to enter psychedelics as their career?
I love talking to people that are interested in entering this industry and aren't sure how, because it's all about relationships. And I think you know this better than anyone else, but the best thing that I did for getting into psychedelics was just really inserting myself into it, going into all the conferences, learning as much as I could, and befriending people that were doing the things that I wanted to do. That's a little bit location specific. You have to have the flexibility to travel to some of these conferences, but the best thing I think you can do in the psychedelic space is host events around the thing that you're looking to curate community around. And I started doing that. So I started hosting psychedelic-themed dinners, inviting the people that I wanted to connect with and eventually work with. And that's what started building community for me. For someone who is maybe in college and they're passionate about this space, apply for any internships that are available that you can find online, and just offer your time and energy to people that you want to be around.
So true. That's how we started. I volunteered for you, and that's
you volunteered, and then it forced you to pay attention, and I was like, oh, she's amazing, and I want to pull you into other projects. So
yes, I would love to know too, working in this industry, it's super controversial. We want to normalize the psychedelic careers. What are some common misconceptions you come around when you're sharing with friends, family who maybe aren't in the industry?
I would say the biggest misconception is that there's a one-size-fits-all way to engage with psychedelics, or there's one path that should be pursued. We're at this conference right now, the MAPS conference. It's focusing on larger MDMA doses of psychedelics for legalization through the FDA. That's the overarching mission of MAPS. And the path that we're working on with Microdosing Collective is a consumer model and more reflective of the way that culture is using it outside of a clinical setting. So there's so many different nuances and ways that you can engage in the space based on what makes you the most excited. So I would say one size fits all is a common misconception. And then just the fact that all psychedelics are so different. We just watched this amazing movie on Iboga, and it's such a powerful compound that's completely different from psilocybin, which is completely different from LSD, which is completely different from MDMA. So there's so many nuances between each of the compounds as well.
Now I would love to hear, obviously I shared with you, you were my biggest mentor and still are. Who is your biggest mentor when you were first starting in the space, and what was the best lesson that they taught you?
I would say it's podcasters. I started listening to podcasts about psychedelics, and it was early days, Tim Ferriss, Aubrey Marcus, a lot of these podcasters that were first starting to talk about what this would look like to bring to culture, and Joe Rogan as well, so kind of the classics, I guess. And then from that place, I was able to connect the dots with people that they were interviewing about psychedelics, and found everyone from Rick to Sylvia Benito, and there's hundreds of people that I really admire their work. And I think the coolest thing about it is they're all doing such different things. Everyone is kind of in agreement on the fact that these should be more safely accessible compounds, yet everyone is working on such a unique angle of it. I started there, and then I found what excited me the most. And I landed on, microdosing as a core vertical of what I think needs to be focused on is just my own personal story and passion behind it, and what I connected with most, and also where I felt like I could be the most impactful. So that was why we started the nonprofit. This is a gap that I don't think has been addressed or filled, and I thought that I had unique skills to to bring community and awareness to that space. I also really love Carl Hart and people that are, edgier with their perspectives. I love Lauren Tao. She's been a mentor of mine forever. There's, inspiration in this world.
I want to know too, you've kind of spoken to this because microdosing was like a huge thing you wanted to fill the gap up, but what do you think right now is the biggest gap in this industry that you think needs to be filled for us to reach the goal of addressing global mental health crisis, et cetera, et cetera?
I mean, the thing I really feel, it's what we're working on. I think that right now there's a huge gap between government and culture, and how the culture is using substances is not reflective of the policies that we're pushing forward. And so I'm really excited about all the macrodosing at service center models that are being pushed forward, the research, all of that's super necessary. And the place I think that has been under-addressed is the sub-perceptual use of microdosing, that 4 million people in the United States used microdosing last year, 8 million used psychedelics in general, so 50% of all people that are using psychedelics are microdosing. And I think that there needs to be policy, education, community around that area.
Okay, and the last question for you. What aspect of your job and your role in this industry brings you the most joy?
The people. I mean, I get to hang out with the coolest people that want to help human consciousness move forward, and you tend to find the best people in those spaces. The areas, I guess, of industry that I focus on are wellness and psychedelics, and you tend to find people that are really genuinely passionate about helping other people live a healthier, happier life. So the people, for sure.
I love that. Thank you, Alli.
You're
Thanks
welcome.
for answering.